Good morning, everyone. Tony Clement is facing extortion, exclusive from Global News. Quote, Tony Clement facing extortion demand of 50,000 euros after sending sexually explicit video. So he is a member of an intelligence committee, a new intelligence committee, and he was briefed recently that he may become the target of blackmail attacks or, anything to compromise somebody on the intelligence committee, right? So he has to step down from all of his duties other than being a backbencher, right? He can't be a minister or anything like that because he's compromised now. So interesting. I'm glad that he came forward. It's not easy to admit you made a mistake, and it's even less easy to admit you made a mistake when it's going to be international headlines. I mean, national headlines, let's say. Maybe not international. A lot happened in the U.S. yesterday. But neither here nor there. It's not easy to admit you made a mistake publicly, especially when you're a public figure like Mr. Clement. But here we are, and that's what happened. So let's hear what Global News' take on this is. And I'm showing this part just to highlight that he is, because of his membership on the committee, a target for exactly this kind of attack. And the fact that the attackers wanted 50,000 euros, is that foreign interference? Foreign attack on our government? I don't know. The RCMP is looking into it, I believe. But it's interesting. Layers upon layers. The person who was targeted, his membership in specific committees, the nature of the attack, the nature of the choices that he made, sending nude pictures, etc. So yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Here's Global News.
And stepped down from his committee duties, including his position on the sensitive National Security and Intelligence Committee, which oversees Canada's intelligence agencies and critical issues of national security. The committee is relatively new, and concerns about MPs on it facing potential blackmail threats had been discussed extensively as it was being set up. However, at this time, there is no indication that the perpetrators in Clement's case were looking for anything other than money. Clement is widely...
So I'm just going to leave it there. If you want to watch the whole thing, there's more to the story. Of course, there's more to the story. He has to step down, and he's staying on in his, as I said, backbenching capacity, but he's not able to be a high-ranking member now because of this. He put himself in a bad situation by making these choices, right? So I'm glad he's owning up to it. I'm glad the police are looking into it, or the authorities are looking into it. Like I said, it's a hard thing to admit you made a mistake, especially this kind of mistake, especially when you're married, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So moving on. Ottawa to save money with new veterans pensions plan, despite saying it'll cost billions. The federal government will save nearly $500 million over 5 years as a result of its move away from lump sum payments to monthly pension payments for life for disabled veterans. But Ottawa is not committing to using those savings to close gaps so that all former military personnel are compensated equally. The lifetime pensions, a Liberal campaign promise, have been targeted by critics who say they fail to bring equality to a system in which veterans who applied for benefits in 2006 or later get less compensation than those who applied in earlier years. When the pensions were unveiled 4 days before Christmas last year, the government said, quote, they represent an additional investment of close to $3.6 billion to support Canada's veterans. Yeah. Skipping down a little bit. Treasury Board guidelines dictate that a cost-benefit analysis looking forward 10 years must be included in regulations for any new federal programs, unless that program will cost less than $1 million annually or $10 million total. But there is no cost-benefit analysis attached for the pensions for life regulations. Veterans Affairs Canada explained in an email to the Globe and Mail that the department was not required to produce anything more than the analysis for the program that will have low financial impact. Disabled veterans who apply for benefits prior to 2006 receive regular pension payments. The new Veterans Charter replaces those pensions with a system based in large part on lump sum payments that now pay up to a maximum of $365,400, payments that vets said were far less than the value of the regular payments for the pre-2006 veterans. The government says the lifetime pensions that start next year will pay newer veterans who choose them over lump sum payments as much or more than the value older veterans receive in their regular payments. But veterans advocates, including Sean Bria, have done calculations to show that a significant disparity will still exist, and a Liberal Library of Parliament analysis has confirmed that is the case. had the government given the money that would be saved, quote, directly to veterans, it not only would have granted parity to veterans, but it also would have fulfilled their Liberal campaign promise to reinstate lifelong pensions, like those offered under the Pensions Act, Mr. Borea said. Quote, the political rhetoric around spending $3.6 billion on this program is really quite farcical, he said. At the very least, the cost of these new programs are canceled out by old programs. This is a cost-saving venture for these guys. Oops, sorry. Skipping down a bit, Mark Campbell, a severely disabled Afghanistan veteran who was part of a group that took the government to court in an unsuccessful bid to achieve parity with the Pensions Act veterans, said he was surprised to find out that the Pensions for Life will not cost the government anything. When the minister had been trumpeting all of the new monies that had been injected into veterans' benefits, Pensions for Life being the centerpiece, Phil McColman, the conservative critic for Veterans Affairs, said it's clear that the Pensions for Life are a shell game and that there are no real additional money being added to the system. But bureaucrats with Veterans Affairs have said Mr. Borea's figures are largely correct, and Mr. Borea is now taking Mr. O'Regan to court seeking $25,000 for the damage he says the minister's column has done to his reputation. So essentially, the government was able to recast the money earmarked, not have to do any kind of analysis of that money because it was already covered under the money they've allocated, so they didn't have to look at it. So they just repackaged it and said, yeah, tough luck. Sorry about your luck. And then used the courts to backstop their decision, which is pretty wild. Alberta is struggling in math. Dismal math scores across Alberta sparked criticism of standardized grade 9 exams. Months before she wrote her grade 9 final math exam, Anita Hofer's daughter was already worried she was going to fail the standardized test. The Calgary mom says she encouraged her daughter to, quote, buckle down in her studying and her note-taking and to be really paying attention during class, thinking a little more effort would be enough for the otherwise strong student. Across Alberta, 13,800 students in grade 9, a third of those who wrote the exam, failed the provincial achievement test in math. A similar share of students in the Calgary Board of Education also fell short of the province's acceptable standard. The high failure rate caused considerable hand-wringing among students, parents, and teachers, especially given revelations that the province considers a 42% mark a passing grade. Parents went to social media and call-in shows openly worried about the quality of math education and sparked debate over various teaching methods, including calls for a return to the old-fashioned way of memorizing times tables. Quick note here. Right now in Ontario, we're unwinding, quote, discovery math, which is not teaching math, teaching the solution, and then asking the kids with, how do you think you'd come up with the problem? Like, what do you think this means, basically? And kids were being shut down for knowing actually how to do math, and because they weren't doing the lesson. Like, they were purposely confusing mathematics. It was incredible to watch, really. Something just unbelievable. So a return to the old-fashioned way of memorizing times tables would not be a bad thing because they worked. You knew that 2 groups of 2 equaled 4. 2 times 2 is 4, right? Like, these are truths that don't get manipulated. This is a fact, a hard fact. So, I mean, maybe that's part of the re-education process to make everything a spectrum, including math. I don't know. Back to the article. Days later, there was a strong indication Albertans were not alone in their math woes when the Ontario government announced all new teachers must pass a mandatory math test before entering the classroom. And this is great. I did 15 years working in education, and I've known many a math teacher in elementary school who is actually afraid of math and didn't know how to actively teach long division. So, the mind is boggled. Grade 5 or 6 teacher who doesn't know how to teach long division. Just terrible. Ontario is no better. Why are elementary school math scores declining in Ontario? And this was published September 12th, 2018. And I'm not going to go through this article, but it has to do with the discovery math. And I'll show you the Ontario line. And this is the international ranking, PISA, the international ranking of math, and they do math and English and science ranking for a whole bunch of different countries. So they have a standardized test that they run in all the different countries to figure out how good you are, and they've been running since 2000. So we've got a pretty good body of data where we rank in the world, right? So we were at 521, and then we were up at 529, and then we were 521, I think it was 20 or 19, and the following year. And the way PISA works is like 1 year, 2000 will be math heavy, 2003 will be science heavy, 2006 will be English heavy, 2009 will be math heavy again. So the 2000 and the 2009 are compared for math, right? And then the 2003 and the 2012 are compared for science, right? It's like, how good are they? How good did they? And it's a smaller sample of math questions in the in-between years. So just in case you weren't sure how that worked, that's how that worked, and that's how that's rated. And Ontario is dropping like a stone. Not cool. Not good. We need to have good, solid math skills because the future is in programming, and programming is fundamentally math, right? And I'm not saying that everybody should be good at math. I think we need people who are good at lots of things, but we definitely need people who are good at math. Okay, and the last story today is Maxime Bernier is giving interviews, and I watched it and I thought it was interesting. I'll show you the highlights. So they're running a dairy producer against Max. They being the Conservative Party of Canada, running a dairy producer. So, which I think is funny because I would imagine that the Liberals are also going to be running a dairy producer, right? And Max has won that election handily 5 times or so, right? So the Liberals are in bed with the dairy cartel, and the Conservatives are also in bed with the dairy cartel. They both have extensive time in the House of Commons talking about how they will not reduce supply management, and supply management is super important, and our friends in dairy, blah, 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 blah. I mean, could you get any further brown nosing? It's disgusting to watch. So 220 here, we'll get there right now. They start talking about when will the party be approved and run candidates, and he says, Max says, if by-elections are called after December 10th, I will be able to run candidates. So here we go.
Prime Minister might call by-elections.
Yes.
So when do you expect the party will be official and ready to put forward candidates in possible by-elections, for instance?
We'll have our approval by Election Canada soon. It's a question of weeks. So mid-December, everything must be done with Election Canada. So we are doing what we need to do right now to build a party in every region in this country. So we have up to now 110 riding association ready. So we need to have riding association all across the country before the end of this year, and we'll be able to do that. If the Prime Minister is going for a by-election and calling a by-election after December the 10th, we'll be able to have candidates in by-election.
Like he's only good. There's four openings. He's called one.
Yes.
The other 3 he hasn't called yet.
Yeah.
And do you think he's waiting so that your party can become so that you're able to run candidates in the by-election and split the Conservative vote?
First of all, I hope that is waiting for us. We want to be part of these by-election. So first. Second, you cannot split the right if there's no right. Andrew Scheer and the Liberals are the same about a lot of policies. The first one is the cartel, and there's a lot of policies. So we have to show to Canadians that we are the real principal alternative, and that would be our goal.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll leave them there. I think my favorite part of that was they're the same on this and a whole bunch of other policies. So I'm a fan, Max. I just thought that was pretty funny. We're going to move ahead. He talks about immigration at 6:05. And I'm glad that he's expecting the party will be approved by December 10th and being able to run candidates in by-elections. That's good news. That's not very long to wait, really, in the grand scheme of things. Here we go. So he's talking about immigration, and I'm a little bit ahead of it. Okay.
We're not anti-immigration. We're not for a mass immigration. We just want lower immigration. So the anti-immigration people, they're not welcome in our party. So, we are serious, and it's a serious party based on serious policies. So we need serious people, and that's normal to us.
Let's talk about the policy.
Okay, and I'm going to jump ahead again to... this is talking about supply management, is it a fundamental principle of the People's Party? And apparently it is. So I think that's important. I think that one of my questions for Max was, is supply management a crowning part of your policy? Will you maintain that even though we have a USMCA deal that maintains the supply management? And it looks like, yeah, that's a fight he wants to have, and he's going to push for it. So here we're right around there. It's a couple of seconds forward or back. So sorry if he's talking about something else.
But
is a principle is an end to supply management? Is that a fundamental principle?
Absolutely.
So if you join your party and say, you know what, Max, I think we should reconsider our opposition to supply management. They don't belong in the party.
No, they're not welcome. And that's why the platform is very well known, and that's why we're able to attract people in our party because of these ideas. So we are serious with Canadians and with our members. We're telling them, if you believe in that, come with us, and you'll have an opportunity in the future to have a political debate with us. But right now we have a year to build a party, and we have a platform that is very popular. That will be the platform of the next campaign. We don't have time to change that before the next election.
Let me ask you one.
Okay, and so I know climate change is on a lot of people's mind, and Max goes in depth on climate change right now. So we're going to listen to that. I like that he's standing behind his supply management principles. I like that. And I like that he's taking firm positions on things. That's my biggest criticism of the Conservatives, and my biggest criticism of the Liberals is that they just talk out the corner of their mouth. They don't say anything. They just talk and talk and talk. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, have a look at the Bill Morneau video I posted yesterday. He spends 6 minutes not answering a question. It's disgusting to watch. And that's our sitting government. Okay, so Maxime Bernier and climate change.
One quick last thing. We've talked again in our program tonight about climate change. And we've seen surveys over the weekend that Canadians are where they are on the issue of climate changes and carbon tax, but they do want to see policies from parties. Will your new party have a policy on climate change?
No.
Why not?
No. First of all, I believe in climate change. Second, and what I'm saying, there's a lot of program at the provincial level and at the municipal level fighting for that. The best policy will be the free market policies. And what we'll do, we'll try to have a competitive environment, a competitive country, and being open. And that will be the private sector will find solution on climate change.
But does the government have a role in encouraging the private sector to,
for sure,
to come
yes,
up? But
yes.
not subsidies, just
encouraging having the best economic platform.
Lower
taxes, less regulation, more competition, and the private sector will find solution for that. So that's what we want to do. And at the provincial level, there's a lot of program, and we have a carbon tax actually in Canada right now. We have a tax, the tax on gas. So it's a carbon tax. People are paying about maybe 29% of taxes when they go and they want to fill up their car. So that's a carbon tax. We don't need another one. And so we're against a carbon tax, and we want to have the private sector to find a solution and to give them incentive, but not subsidies. The incentive will be a more competitive environment.
Okay.
And so that's that. A couple of things on that. The United States is executing that exact program. The White House has no direction on climate change. They have not commented on climate change. So, and they have reduced their greenhouse gas emissions. While Vancouver has had a climate carbon tax since 2011, I believe, and their emissions have continued to rise. So, interesting. Max's plan is to let the free market do what the free market has done for the last 100 years, maybe 200 years, 150 years, and solve the problem, which is happening in real time in the United States. And a carbon tax is actively increasing greenhouse gas emissions in places that it is implemented, like Vancouver or California. So, very interesting. Thank you, Max. I appreciate the interview. And, well, that's it for me this morning. Have a good day. Check out thepeoplespartyofcanada.ca. Thanks for watching.